Jesus and his disciples set out for the villages of Caesarea Philippi, Mark says in today's gospel. Places often provide Mark in his gospel with a context for what Jesus is going to say and do. Caesarea Philippi and its surroundings stood about 25 miles north of the Jewish towns where Jesus ministered around the Sea of Galilee. It was at the foot of Mount Hermon, a beautiful mountain, source of the water for the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee. So this was a strategic area, and the Romans made it a showplace of Roman power. Shrines of Roman and Greek gods were everywhere. This was Caesar's town. So approaching this place, Jesus asks, "Who do people say that I am?" His disciples mention powerful Jewish figures. Some say John the Baptist, who stood up to King Herod. Some say Elijah, the fearless prophet who stood up to King Ahab and his notorious wife Jezebel. But Peter goes beyond these Jewish heroes. "You are the Christ," he says, "more powerful than the prophets and bigger than Caesar, who's honored at this place." Peter sees the Messiah as someone far above Caesar, but his power is like Caesar's, multiplied and purified, sure, but power is still the same. He'll make Israel a nation far greater and better than anything the Romans had done. And then Jesus speaks of a humble Messiah. The leaders of his people will reject him. He'll suffer death and rise again. He's not like Caesar at all. "No," Peter says, "you can't be a Messiah like that." And then Mark's gospel says very solemnly that at this Jesus turned around and, looking at his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You're thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." And he continued speaking to them all of a Messiah whom we follow by taking up our cross. We'll save our lives by following him. Now, obviously, in this gospel, Mark invites us to Caesarea Philippi, that showplace of power with Jesus and his disciples, and asks us to enter the story. Peter isn't the only one who admires power that controls millions and seems to change the world any way it wants. Peter isn't the only one who admires success. Peter isn't the only one who thinks as human beings do, not as God does. We do too. We're not far from Peter's thinking, human beings that we are. The mystery of Jesus and his cross are hard to accept. Hard to accept in Jesus. Hard to accept in ourselves, and hard to accept in the things that go on in our world. That we like success and power that gets things done. We think like human beings do. Over and over, Mark's gospel says Jesus' disciples found him hard to understand. We do too. But let's follow him, who's called us and given us his grace. He goes to Jerusalem, where he suffers under Pontius Pilate, Caesar's representative. He's crucified and rises from the dead. Let's follow him and learn how God thinks.